Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Let me get this off of me. I'm Kris, your lovely, dashing host of this final episode of Epic History TV's World War I, 1918. Sorry. Good beard scratch. Right? I feel good. Ladies, you grow a little beard, start scratching it. Feels good, doesn't it? What? Okay. So we're gonna knock this one out. This will be the final episode from Epic History TV. But I have another channel that I was told about. But I'm not going to tell you yet. I'm just going to do one of those episodes. But I think one of them from the other channel video will be broken down into quite a few episodes. I think about 3 episodes. I don't know. I don't remember now. Alright. Let's get into this. World War I, 1918. The final year. At least I hope, unless I've done it wrong.
(1918) After 3.5 years of war, the Allies are in crisis. Russia has been rocked by revolution, and its new Bolshevik government has signed an armistice with the Central Powers. Thousands of German troops will be freed up to fight on the Western Front, where the carnage of trench warfare has already claimed more than 1 million lives.
Does this look like a person? I know it's not. And I've seen this picture a couple times. We're like, that's the head, that's the legs, and that's an arm. I know it's not. But that's kind of like the first thought that I have. It's just a guy going, ah! Alright.
But Germany is also desperate. Britain's long naval blockade has led to shortages and social unrest at home. While America's entry into the war brings fresh manpower and vast resources to the Allied cause, Germany faces inevitable defeat unless it can win a quick victory on the Western Front. US President Wilson announces his 14 points. They outline his vision for a post-war world, including an end to secret treaties, a reduction in the size of armed forces, self-determination for the people of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and an international organization to settle future disputes. But most European leaders dismiss his ideas as wishful thinking. At Brest-Litovsk, Bolshevik Russia signs a peace treaty with the Central Powers. Russia gives up vast amounts of territory in exchange for peace. 500,000 German troops can now be redeployed from the east to the...
Who'd they give up the land to? I mean, I'm guessing that's the... It's not the Allies. You know, the bad people. Is that who they gave up the land to? You don't know.
Western
right?
Front, where German General Erich Ludendorff plans an all-out, last-ditch offensive to win the war. Ludendorff's spring offensive catches the Allies off guard. German stormtroopers, using new infiltration tactics, help to overwhelm the British Fifth Army, which is soon in full retreat. The German advance threatens to split the British and French armies, with disastrous consequences. So French General Ferdinand Foch is appointed Supreme Commander of Allied forces to coordinate strategy. Outside Amiens, British and Australian troops improvise a defence and finally halt the German advance. The German offensive switches to the north, targeting the Channel ports. But the British inflict heavy losses on the Germans and prevent a breakthrough. Above the trenches, the First Air War continues to escalate. Each side now has more than 3,000 aircraft in service on the Western Front. But by 1918, the Allies have won air superiority, thanks to greater resources. On the 21st of April, Germany's most famous pilot, Manfred von Richthofen, the Red Baron, is shot down and killed near Amiens. With 80 victories, he's the war's highest-scoring ace, and is buried by the Allies with full military honours.
Oh, wow. He shot down and then the Allies buried him. Okay. They did that with... was it Kermit Roosevelt? Teddy Roosevelt's son was a pilot. Or was he a gunner on a plane? I don't remember, but his plane went down and he was killed. And the Germans recognized him as Roosevelt's son. This is, I mean, obviously Roosevelt was no longer president. But they held a funeral for him as well. Yeah. The Red Baron, that's a name I've heard before.
Britain's new independent bombing force launches a daylight raid against Cologne. It marks the beginning of Britain's own strategic bombing campaign. On the ground, Ludendorff's offensive switches south, targeting the French. German troops advance 30 miles, but are halted at the River Marne, just as fresh American divisions enter the line. The US 1st Division is the first to see combat at the Battle of Cantigny. 3 days later, the US 2nd Division wins victory at the Battle of Belleau Wood. By now, there are nearly 1 million American soldiers in France, with 10,000 more arriving every day. The fourth phase of the German offensive leads to a 9-mile advance, but is finally halted by a French counterattack. In Italy, Austria-Hungary launches an attack at Asiago and the Piave River to support Ludendorff's offensive in France. But it's repulsed with heavy losses, and morale amongst the Austro-Hungarian army collapses. British and French troops land at Murmansk in northern Russia. It's the beginning of Allied intervention in Russia's civil war, on the side of so-called white or anti-Bolshevik forces. On the Western Front, the Germans' final attack is defeated in the Second Battle of the Marne. Ludendorff's offensive has cost the Germans more than 600,000 casualties, and has failed to make a decisive breakthrough. Germany's final gamble has failed. The Allies now go on the attack. At the Battle of Amiens, British, Australian, Canadian and French troops, supported by tanks and aircraft, advance 7 miles in a single day. General Ludendorff calls the 8th of August the Black Day of the German army. German troops are exhausted hungry and demoralised, and begin to surrender in their thousands. The Battle of Amiens begins the Allies' 100 Days Offensive. Trench warfare is over. The Germans are in full retreat. In the Balkans, a new Allied offensive at Dobropolje breaks through Bulgarian positions. The overstretched Bulgarian army collapses, and 2 weeks later, Bulgaria signs an armistice. In the Middle East, British-led forces defeat the Turks at the Battle of Megiddo, taking 25,000 prisoners. Allied troops soon occupy Damascus and Aleppo. On the Western Front, Marshal Foch orders a general attack. British, French and American armies reach the Hindenburg Line, a line of reinforced German defences, and break through. Ludendorff informs the Kaiser that the military situation is hopeless and that Germany must seek an armistice. Germany sends a request to US President Woodrow Wilson, who in return demands German withdrawal from all occupied territory and the Kaiser's abdication. On the Italian front, the Allies deliver the final blow to Austria.
I wonder why he contacted America and not like, well, okay. I was going to say, and why not England or France, because they've been fighting the longest. He was probably looking for a better deal from Wilson because we hadn't been in the war that long, and figured that we might be a little more fair than obviously England and France would be, because they had been going through this shit. And I mean, they would not have been fair. We know that the United Nations, League of Nations, and the rise of Germany for World War II was based on that, because Wilson just couldn't get it passed into Congress. Some of that was Wilson's fault, some of that was the Republicans in office who were fighting him, but irregardless of that, it did not get through. And I know Wilson was not thrilled with a lot of the stuff that was being shoved down Germany's throat, but I think that he was they probably looked at him being a little more fair, the outsider, especially Germany, France, England, or am I supposed to call them Great Britain? I don't know. It's just England to me. These three countries, especially England and France and Spain, always seem to be, it just always, when one was fighting, the other one was like, can I get in on that? Like, they just, so, Montenegro. I haven't heard about them in this. I mean, I know they joined, but I haven't really heard much about them. They're I'm sure they're involved, but they probably don't have the, hey, this is World War I, 1918, girls, okay? Collapse is happening, so let's be good. Sorry.
Hungary, at the Battle of Vittorio Veneto. The Austro-Hungarian
They do have some pretty kick-ass names, though, for the battle.
army disintegrates, and 300,000 prisoners are taken.
Wow!
With the Central
captured.
Powers facing collapse, the Ottoman Empire signs an armistice with the Allies at Mudros. 4 days later, Austria-Hungary signs an armistice with the Allies at Villa Giusti. At Kiel, the German High Seas Fleet is ordered to make a suicidal attack on the British Navy. But instead, it mutinies. Revolution spreads through Germany. The Kaiser abdicates, and a German Republic is proclaimed. On the 11th of November 1918, a German delegation signs an armistice with the Allies inside Marshal Foch's railway carriage at Compiègne. It comes into force at 11 AM, but fighting continues until the last moment. American Private Henry Gunter is killed, charging a German machine gun at 10:59. He is thought to be the last soldier killed during World War I.
Now, I've heard somewhere regarding this guy that when he charged that machine gun line... Wow, he's 23. But when he charged that machine gun line, the Germans were saying, no, no, go back, go back. And he just... And they're like, no, 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 go back, go back, go back, stop, stop, stop. And he just charged. Well, what are you going to do if you're a German? You don't want to kill this guy, but you know that this thing kicks in at 11 o'clock. That's 10:59. He might not have the word yet. You got to defend yourself. I don't know what he charged at him with. I'm guessing it was a gun. But you know he's going to get some shots off, and you're not going to risk your life because the war's over, and you don't know how long you've been served, or you've been fighting. So you gotta kill him to save your own life. It's 1 minute before. You'd think just the people on his side would have been like, where are you going, dude? What are you doing? Get back here. Stop. I don't know.
3 days later, in East Africa, German General von Lettow-Vorbeck surrenders his army on the Chambezi River. For 4 years, he has tied down huge numbers of Allied troops, remaining undefeated while cut off from home. He is still considered one of history's greatest guerrilla leaders.
Sounds like it. Well?
The Paris Peace Conference opens at the Palace of Versailles, just outside the French capital. Delegates accept a proposal to create a League of Nations to settle future international disputes. The Versailles Treaty, signed in June, imposes harsh terms on Germany. Its military is restricted in size. It must pay war reparations to the Allies. It loses territory to its neighbours. And its colonies are seized by the victors. Germany must also accept responsibility for the war in a war guilt clause, a source of lasting
for causing all damage and destruction which the Allied and associated governments have been subjected as a consequence of the war imposed upon them by the aggression of Germany and their allies. Like, I understand why they would want them to put that in there, but... you know what? No. Yes. Put it in there. The war reparations and all that stuff, okay, I get it. But yeah, put that in. A lot of people died in this war. Yes, what am I thinking? Yeah, put that in there. Hammer home all the people who are dead because of all this. Now, it wasn't Germany who started the war, but Germany was the main engine in an aspect to keeping it going. So yeah, I get that. Okay. I understand.
Resentment in Germany.
And I understand why they're mad.
The boundaries of Europe are redrawn. Poland re-emerges after 100 years of foreign rule, while Austria, Hungary, Czechoslovakia, Yugoslavia, and an enlarged Romania emerged from the ashes of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. The Ottoman Empire is dismantled. New states, most under European control, are created in the Middle East. Here, as in Europe, the seeds of future conflict are sown. While in the Far East, former German possessions in China are handed to Japan, to China's outrage. World War I claimed the lives of 9.5 million soldiers. 1 in 8 of those who fought.
Jesus.
21 million more were wounded. 7 million civilians also lost their lives. Huge areas of Europe were left devastated. Old empires vanished. New states were born. Lives across the world were transformed. The world was never the same again. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to like it and...
Wow. It's crazy how we just carve up the world. You know, after wars, we just carve it up. I don't think we try not to do that anymore, but wow. Well, I hope you learned something from this. Don't shoot Archduke Ferdinand, because we don't need to go through all this again. Archduke Ferdinand, was that who it was? Yeah. Archduke Ferdinand. Yeah. Archduke Ferdinand, yes. I kept wanting to say the Duke of Arch and Ferdinand. That's not right. You're so dope. Alright, well, I hope we all learned something for this video. And that is, war is not good. Man, I just can't get over all the death. And I know World War II was more, but this was brutal. And I just mean from the soldiers' aspects. It just, I mean, you get into later years, more devastating weapons and stuff like that. But all right, well, I'm going to end this here. I hope you enjoyed this Epic History TV's series on World War I, because I certainly did. I did, because I want to read that book. So, okay, I'm going to end this here. Have a good day. Have a good night.